Some years back, a Mason told me of an encounter he had with an anti-Mason. He was not a new Mason, but he was shocked at the encounter. He had difficulty understanding the logic of the anti-Mason. He told me that he had known the man for many years and considered him a friend, but the subject of Freemasonry had never come up in any of their conversations. When the man learned that he was a Freemason, his entire attitude towards him changed. He then began making charges that the Mason knew were not correct, but because he was not a student of Masonic history, nor was he well read in its philosophy, he was not able to properly defend Masonry from the many charges that this man made. He said that it was a helpless feeling to hear what he knew were false charges being made, but being unable to properly mount any sort of defense. The fact is that anti-Masonry has existed for about as long as Freemasonry has existed. There is a thought that for the world to be in proper balance, everything must have an equal opposite. For there to be light, there must be dark. If there is good, there must also be bad, and so on. If Freemasonry is the pure philosophy that it is represented to be, then we must understand that there must have an opposite. Freemasonry must be challenged and forced to defend itself from the other end of the spectrum if it is to remain a true and pure philosophy. If this thought is correct, then anti-Masonry is not a phenomenon in need of being crushed out. Anti-Masonry is very much needed to provide balance to the Masonic philosophy and to remain a constant test to it so that it does not diminish in value. But understanding the greater reasons of why anti-Masonry may exist is not very helpful if anti-Masons are making actual attacks on Freemasonry or Freemasons themselves. The fact is, we must know Freemasonry if we are going to defend it. If all we do is attend business meetings, listen to minutes, visit with friends and drink coffee, then it is no wonder we won't be able to defend Masonry when falsehoods are written or spoken. In his paper, The Rise and Development of Anti-Masonry in America, 1737 to 1826, Hugo Tasch tells us of a very disturbing early account of anti-Masonry. He writes of a con man who tricked people into joining what he said was Freemasonry, only to put them through ridiculous and humiliating situations for personal entertainment. The bogus rituals ended deadly when one candidate was set on fire and died a painful death several days later. Because the man represented himself as Freemasonry, actual Freemasonry was painted with his brush. From the way things seem to me, there are three general categories of anti-Masonry. One is a fanatic anti-Mason, where individuals choose to believe pretty much anything at all about Masonry simply because someone, usually a man representing himself as a man of the cloth, tells them that nonsense is fact. Their belief of terrible things about Masonry becomes almost interwoven with their religious faith. Another form of anti-Masonry is business anti-Masonry. Some individuals advance all sorts of anti-Masonic activity and teachings, even some in the guise of religion, but the end is always to sell things for personal profit. Since they make a good living off of anti-Masonry, they are hardly ready to change their tune. The third form of anti-Masonry is a bit more complicated. It is when individuals will start what they claim to be Masonic lodges, identify themselves to be Masonic lodges, and then con those who know no better into joining them. They make their living off of pretending to be Masonry, but offer nothing in the way of Masonry for those who join them. The general public, often knowing little to nothing of Masonry, believe them to be true Masonry, recognize what they did as a con, and blame Freemasonry itself. The whole of Masonry suffers. Let's look deeper at these situations. Back in the 1980s, I had two first-hand accounts of what could be called fanatical anti-Masonry. I remember there was a woman who was a yoga instructor, and my mother was a student of hers. This instructor and my mother became friends, and I remember the instructor coming over to the house often to visit. At some point thereafter, the yoga instructor joined a church which felt that yoga was an abomination. The church also taught that anyone who belonged to Freemasonry was not only a sinner, but also not a Christian, no matter what they believed. Now, I didn't know anything about this, and one day I came into the house to find both of them talking. The woman was telling my mother how she was giving up teaching yoga and the reasons for it. As they were talking, the woman looked up and saw my Masonic ring. Without hardly missing a beat, she looked me right in the eyes and said, "You don't believe in God." I was caught off guard, surprised and not really sure exactly what to say to the woman. I simply told her that I did believe in God. She immediately told me that I was wrong. She said that she knew that I did not. I was young at the time and not completely prepared to deal with something that seemed so absurd to me. I couldn't understand how she could believe that she had any idea as to what was in my heart. I asked her how she could believe such a thing about someone she didn't know at all. She then said that her minister told her. I was even more shocked and still not sure that I was hearing correctly. I pointed out that this was not a better answer, as a minister had never laid eyes on me. She told me that her minister told her that anyone who does not belong to her church does not believe in God. I was stunned at the total illogic of such an answer. I attributed the problem to her personally and assumed that she must be an irrational person. I thought she was nuts. I dismissed the event as just nonsense from a strange woman. About 6 months to a year later, a second incident happened. I was working at the time in downtown New Orleans, and parking in that area was very expensive. We had a convenient public transportation system, and I would take the bus to work every day. I would come home every evening about the same time, and as I was walking home, I would pass a neighbor's house who lived down the street from me. Most days I would see him sitting out on his lawn chair, reading the Bible. I didn't really think that much of it. I would normally wave at him and ask him how he was doing. We didn't get into any long conversations, but the greetings were always friendly. One day we were exchanging a few words, and he noticed that I was wearing a Masonic ring. His attitude changed a bit, and he asked if I was a Freemason. I told him yes. He then told me that I probably didn't know that this was an evil organization. He said that he had proof that would confirm what he said. He asked if I would wait for a minute while he got me this proof. I knew that he was wrong, but I was not in a mood to debate him, so I just told him no thanks, dismissed the conversation, and went home. For about a month or so later, every time I saw the neighbor, he would ask me if I could just give him a few moments so that he could show me the proof that he had on Masonry. He said that he had documents that would show without question that Freemasonry was satanic. He said that he cared about me and didn't want me continuing sinning by being a member. I normally just waved at him and told him that I didn't have much time. Well, one Friday he caught me in the right mood, and I told him that I would take a look at what he had. He went inside and came back out with a briefcase. The briefcase was filled with a large number of photocopies of various documents. He said that this was the proof that Freemasonry is evil. I told him that this was far too many documents to review at that moment, and asked him if I could take the documents home with me for the weekend so that I could look at them. He told me that this was fine, and I went home to look over the material. When I started looking through the documents in the briefcase, I saw that they were all photocopies of various anti-Masonic books and leaflets. All of the copies showed various quotes from what seemed to be Masons. Each of the quotes looked to be properly cited. I happened to have a fairly good Masonic library, and I had a copy of each of the books from where the quotes were taken. Invariably, each and every quote that was cited was either out of context, misquoted, or completely made up. I remember one quote that was from a Grand Master giving a speech, and the quote said, "Masonry is evil, it is satanic." I looked in the book from where the speech was transcribed, and what the Grand Master actually said was, "I would be telling a lie if I said that Masonry is evil, it is satanic." So I sat down, and for each and every quote that he gave, I provided the correction from the original source. I guess that I was naive because I thought that by providing him with all the corrections, he would change his view of Freemasonry. I fully expected to sit down with him, show him the corrections, and for him to say, "Gee, I guess I was wrong about Freemasonry." Well, I went back to the man's house and sat down with him. I showed him each and every one of the pieces of evidence and how each one of them did not truly say what he claimed that they said. There was no debate in this matter. The proof that he said he was going to show me simply did not exist. When I finished, He didn't say anything. He just sat there. I finally said, "Do you see that the proof you said you were going to show me does not exist?" The man looked me right in the eyes and said, "No, I don't see that at all. Jesus is my proof." I was completely baffled. I grew up as a Christian, but not once have I ever been taught that Jesus supported falsehoods. He had created a situation where he knowingly and willingly accepted lies, and his only defense was a professed belief that Jesus would agree with supporting falsehoods. I didn't know what to say, so I left. Someone who I consider to be a religious fanatic is not one who simply holds strongly to a religious belief. The very nature of religion means that it goes outside the realm of scientific proof. A religious fanatic is one who will take an unsanctioned detail of their religion and then deny truth itself in order to hold on to that religious modification. An example would be an anti-Mason who believes various things about Freemasonry, as my former neighbor did. They will hold on to these misconceptions as a religious belief even when they are proven incorrect. Another example would be the friend of my mother who claimed to know the heart of a stranger. She claimed to know the private beliefs of a stranger simply on the suggestion of her minister. The fanatical aspects of these people had nothing to do with their belief in the Supreme Being. It had to do with their judgments that they freely made about other human beings. There is another type of anti-Masonry that began in the 1990s that created a good bit of excitement in U.S. Masonry. I don't really know if this particular anti-Masonic movement was always the way it evolved into, or if it was born one way and then evolved in a different direction. In the late 80s and early 90s, there was unrest in the religious organization known as the Southern Baptist Convention. A small group of members began an organized attack on Freemasonry. Their claim was that Freemasonry was incompatible with Christianity. Their support for this claim was exactly the same as the proof displayed by my former neighbor, meaning out-of-context quotes, misquotes, and outright created quotes. The problem for many Masons was that they did not have readily available Masonic reference books and were unable to properly counter the charges made against them. It was around this time that a Masonic friend of mine, Arturo de Hoyos, co-authored a book with S. Brent Morris titled, "Is It True What They Say About Freemasonry?" Initially, I was critical of this book as I felt it was improper for Freemasons or Freemasonry to dignify such irrational attacks. I felt that their talents were better suited in other areas of research. I didn't feel it fitting for them to attempt to change the minds of those who did not want their minds changed. I was wrong. I considered this movement a totally fanatical movement. I failed to realize at the beginning that business played a part in this particular anti-Masonic movement. The young internet was used successfully by these anti-Masons in order to spread their Masonic propaganda. Mixed in with their falsehoods was a cleverly disguised sales campaign. We must understand that the libraries possessed by most Masons consist of, at most, a few general Masonic encyclopedias. Most Masons were unable to properly defend and expose the so-called proof of these anti-Masons for what it was. The documents containing misquotes, out-of-context quotes, and outright made-up quotes made impressive sounding and very believable evidence to those who knew little of Freemasonry. It was not long before books were written by these anti-Masons containing this very same false information. Because of their religious-sounding delivery method and persistence of these anti-Masonic leaders, these books did become popular, and before long, successful anti-Masonic businesses were created. Grand Lodges had long been lax in maintaining things such as copyrights on their monitors and other printed material. Most Grand Lodges were more concerned with replenishing dwindling membership than fighting possibly difficult copyright battles with anti-Masons. The result was that monitors and other printed material was stolen by anti-Masons and reprinted by them to be sold on their website. These anti-Masons found a good business in selling falsehoods. Believable arguments were made, and it was an attractive sales technique. It was successful. Around this time, CompuServe was a popular internet service provider. CompuServe provided community forums on a wide variety of interests. For those discovering the young internet, the CompuServe forums were extremely interesting and popular. It was here that one of the very early Masonic forums was created, the CompuServe Masonry Forum. There were also several religious forums on CompuServe, and these were soon discovered by anti-Masons. The anti-Masons had made several attempts to post their propaganda on the CompuServe Masonry Forum itself, but they were quickly booted off. They were, however, able to find a home on several of the CompuServe religious forums, and the campaign of lies began. Of course, along with that was near non-stop reference to where the so-called true Christians could buy proof of the anti-Masonic charges and support God's work. This was indeed a cleverly disguised money-making scheme that was successful for a number of years. I personally learned how wrong I was about the work of Brothers De Hoyos and Morris when I began taking part in what would become the CompuServe anti-Masonic debates. These were a series of debates, or really nasty arguments, taking place mostly on the various CompuServe religion forums. The anti-Masons would make charges, and knowledgeable Masons would refute the charges. The anti-Masons would then pivot to make new charges, only then go back to their initial charge as if it had never been answered. It was all tactics and games. These so-called anti-Masons were really clever salesmen who were skilled in the bait-and-switch technique. Masons taking part in the defense of Freemasonry were put through extraordinarily difficult and frustrating times with having to answer the same question over and over again. What became clear very quickly was that there was no changing the minds of the ones making the charges. They were fixed in their opinion, and nothing would change it. The ones who could be changed and influenced by the truth were often the silent listeners who had little to no knowledge of Freemasonry. Many of the ones who had only read the various posts and never stepped out of the shadows had no idea as to what was or was not true. They had no preconceived ideas of Freemasonry itself and had no reason to doubt initially either the anti-Masons or the Masons. These individuals were Christian, and because of the nature of the charges made by the anti-Masons, they were interested in the claims and did purchase material from them because of the subject. Because of the work of the Masonic researchers who took part in these debates, many honest and objective Christians came to see the lies being peddled by these anti-Masonic businessmen. I realized that if Masons ignored these anti-Masonic charges, it would harm the Masonic organization itself due to the persuasive nature of the anti-Masonic sales techniques. But what is the real difference between a religious fanatic and a religious businessman intent on selling a religious belief? While there may be psychological or philosophical differences between the mindsets, the reality is that neither has a desire to allow facts to change their position. You cannot change the mind of someone who wants to believe something. It is only when someone is open to the truth that facts have any importance. One of the great benefits of the CompuServe anti-Masonic debates was a particular website that came as a result of these debates. The website was the creation of Worshipful Brother Ed King of Maine and is titled Anti-Masonry Points of View. This website is an absolute goldmine of information on anti-Masons, their sales techniques, and the charges that were commonly made by them. It is an extremely valuable website for attaining verifiable information and clearing up the smoke and mud thrown by the anti-Masons. While the anti-Masonic frenzy of the 90s has generally passed, a number of these anti-Masonic businessmen still exist and still do con many individuals. There is a third form of anti-Masonry that I believe needs to be mentioned. This form of activity is more closely tied to the anti-Masonic businessmen than the fanatic anti-Masons in that making money seems to be their main goal. This form of anti-Masonry is where businessmen set up what appears to be a Masonic Grand Lodge with the goal of creating Masons. Of course, these bodies are created with no authority whatsoever and are the textbook definition of irregular. The main goal of most of these self-created Grand Lodges is to make money for the few at the very top and give nothing in the way of Masonry to the members. Prince Hall Masonry uses a term that I believe is very appropriate for these type of Masonic businesses. Their term is bogus Masonry. The term bogus Masonry very nicely applies to these self-created bodies, which are more of the lines of money-making schemes. I've long felt that there is a need for a third branch in the Masonic tree. What I see as the three branches are regular Masonry, irregular Masonry, and bogus Masonry. Regular Freemasonry is simply legitimate Freemasonry. It is the Masonry that is recognized and conducts itself as regular. Irregular Masonry is Masonry that has some problem with its organization or ritual. It is not viewed by regular Freemasonry as regular, but bogus Masonry is different from irregular Masonry in that many times irregular Masonic bodies do seem, at least, to attempt to practice regular Freemasonry. The problem with irregular Masonry is that many times they just do not have legitimate origins. Bogus Masonry is more often than not simply money-making schemes by con men who attempt to personally profit off of Freemasonry's reputation. Some years back I heard of a classic example of bogus Masonry, and I believe this example needs to be retold to show the danger to regular Freemasonry. In this case, several con men decided to create their own Grand Lodge in an African American community. They paid close attention to what was going on in the community. They learned of a man who had recently been diagnosed with terminal cancer. He was given only a few months to live. This was a hard-working man with a family. The news of his illness was especially hard on him, not only because of the fact of the illness, but because he was not at all a wealthy man and did not know how his family would survive without him. One evening a knock came on the door. Several men had come calling, identifying themselves as the Freemasons. They told the man and his wife that they had learned of his unfortunate illness and situation. They said that they may be able to help. They said that if this man would join the Freemasons, they would assure that he would have a Masonic funeral and burial at no expense to the family. They said that they would also provide several bags of groceries to the man's widow each week and see that his children would remain in school until they graduated or were of age. They said that the fee to join the Masons was $200. They left the man and his wife to think about the offer and said that they would return in a few days. The man and his wife had heard of Freemasonry, and they had heard that it was an honorable organization, but $200 was about all they had in savings. Realizing this money would not even pay for the funeral, they felt that joining would be a wise way to invest the money for the future of the family. They decided that it would be best for him to join. The men returned a few days later. They were given the $200, and the sick man was given a dues card and told that he was now a member of the Freemasons. They left. Nothing more was heard from them. The man passed away, and of course these con men were nowhere to be found. Months after the man passed away, his widow saw one of the men on the street. She approached him in anger and desperation. She wanted to know why they had not come back. She said that her husband passed away and they did nothing at all. She reminded him of all they had promised prior to her husband's joining. The man said there must be some misunderstanding. He said that they did fulfill everything as promised. He said that her husband gave them $200, and that was the Master Mason's package. He said that, for that, they said a prayer in lodge for the man and recorded his name in a list of honored members. He said that what she was talking about was the 33rd degree package. He said that this package would have cost $5,000. Of course, the woman realized that she had been tricked by this thief. While she realized this man's nature, she did not realize that he was only pretending to be a Mason. From that day on, anyone who identified themselves as a Freemason was viewed by her and everyone she could tell as a thief and a con man. This group of bogus Masons, thieves, and con men not only deeply damaged and hurt this family, but the whole of Freemasonry with their deception. This is why I believe that a special notice should be taken of this particular brand of anti-Masonry. The damage it does to individuals, the community, and Freemasonry itself cannot be minimized. It must be exposed and by every legal measure crushed out. No matter what we like, dislike, want, or reject, anti-Masonry has been a thorn in the side of Freemasonry for as nearly as long as it has existed. The limitations of this paper do not allow for all accounts of anti-Masonry around the world. Religious fanatics and con men have not been the only anti-Masons. Political dictators, as well as anyone seeking to destroy freedom, have strongly opposed Freemasonry. Even a few world and religious leaders such as Pope Leo XIII and U.S. President John Adams have been famous for anti-Masons. Albert Pike has long been a target of the anti-Masons due to his often difficult to understand or open to interpretation language. But it is not just Pike's language that had been the point of confusion or attack. Many Masonic words and phrases are simply archaic and odd-sounding to the ear. They are ripe for attack by those wishing to make something out of nothing. The early 1900s were a time of more than a few notable Masonic conmen, including Matthew McBlain Thompson and his notorious American Masonic Federation, and the almost comical TK and his great work, whose real name was John E. Richardson. Anti-Masons have also been capable of serious damage to Freemasonry. Space does not permit a close examination of the William Morgan affair, but the effects of this anti-Masonic attack nearly destroyed the whole of Masonry in the New England states and even more areas of the U.S. in the 1820s and for a good 20 or more years later. But with all this, Freemasonry still exists. We are stronger because of the trials and tribulations of these attacks. I imagine that if anti-Masonry did not exist, Freemasonry would become complacent and become disconnected from its goals and philosophy. So we must learn to live with the dark in order to enjoy the light. Freemasonry is not a club. It's a fascinating and intricate system of moral philosophy, and it can easily be overwhelming for a new Mason. My just released The New Mason's book was written to give the new Mason a foundational look at a wide array of indispensable topics in a way that is both engaging and informative. Masonic subjects are presented in a brotherly and welcoming manner, making it easy for new Masons to follow and understand. This book not only offers much-needed Masonic education, but is also designed to make new Masons feel at ease as they are exploring the deeper world of Freemasonry. The New Mason's book is not just a resource, but a companion on the journey of Freemasonry. I'm proud to offer this work as an addition to the quality Masonic education program of any new Mason. Please pick up a copy for you or someone you know at the Cornerstone website. Thank you.